kids were reading a lot of books they loved, you know, at the time, they were popular stuff, and it's before the Hunger Games came out, and they were complaining that a lot of the books were starting to feel the same. They were like, you know, like, we've read the vampire books, we love those, but we're sick of, like, we want people to stop writing new vampire books now. Like, we read Twilight, we read, you know, Vampire Diaries, we love those, like, we want someone to write something new. And there's like, and they said, you know, we are tired of always having the girl narrator and the boy being the one who's powerful and supernatural and gets to do all the cool stuff.
Yeah, the girls were starting to sound whiny to them.
Yeah, they're like, we want the girl to be the powerful one, and we don't want a story that feels really generic. They're like, you know, all these settings, the places, the cities, they all seem like they're interchangeable.
So we were talking about this at El Cholo in Santa Monica over a few pinchers of Diet Coke and more chips than we will ever admit. And we were talking about what we like, because we actually are like the 60% of our readership were adults.
Yeah.
And we read, you know, young adult fantasy, like, because we wanted to.
Right. So we were kind of like, well, why can't anyone do this? Like, you could do this. You know, it was kind of like a brain, like, you could do this, you could do that. If we were going to do it, we would do this. And then by the time we left, we had, like, a bunch of napkins and, like, a whole idea.
Tammy's
we came up with all of that.
From the South. My family's from a small town in the West, and we had this small town, really soaked in family folk tales, sort of narrative tradition between us. You know, Southerners can tell a story, like, can really tell a story.
And also know their genealogy, their history, the stories about their families, the recipes.
Yeah. So
recipes are important.
We had that in common. We call it the Great Casserole Belt we had between us, cream of country. And we came from cream of country, and we wanted to tell a family story and a love story and a magical story.
Mama, who's our, you know, our kind of mother figure character, we knew that we wanted her to be incredibly, like, powerful and strong and mortal, but, like, you know, beyond mortal. She's kind of a combination of my great-grandmother and Margie's grandmother, who are, like, women to be reckoned with. So we wanted her to have, like, this rich cultural heritage where, like, you know, I mean, my great-grandmother, like, if I was like, my tooth is loose, like, suddenly there was, like, a string around it, and the door slammed, and my tooth was out, and I was like, you know, and she would be like, I can get rid of your cough, and she would slather weird stuff all over me, and, you know, I would smell at school and be unpopular, but, you know, that's what the South is like. Like, you know, there are people who still have those traditions, and actually my cough always went away. Well, my family's from a small town in North Carolina, and, well, it's inside of Ahoskie. It's called Pilesville. It's where Catfish Hunter's from. That's the only reason why anybody knows where
I know
it is.
Ahoskie.
Okay, well, inside of Ahoskie is Pilesville, which has, like, one stoplight, and there's a big barbecue place where everyone gets married. But it's in Ahoskie. So we were thinking about it, and we knew we wanted to have, like, a connection to the Civil War. Yeah. And I'm really fascinated with burning things, and so it became we were going to.
She's like the Seraphine in the.
Yeah, my great grandfather was Jubal Early, so the Confederate general. So we wanted to do the Great Burning, which obviously did not take place in North Carolina. So we are in love with Charleston. So I was like, you know, there's a lot of similarities, and we kind of picked a fictional place near
there. It was the low country thing, because there's like this whole concept of low country in Charleston, and really along that whole coast. It's like the place where magic rolls in with the fall.
Well, the Gullah tradition.
So you had ships that would stop, you know this, in Boston at the tip of the Cape Orient and come right down to Charleston, and also then come straight in through the Sugar Islands, right? You'd stop at the island and you'd let everyone with cholera off, and then you'd go into Charleston. They called it Coffin Island. But, you know, that's where also Gullah culture and magic happened. So we wanted to be in a place where we thought magic could be still written. Everything we do starts with a massive conversation, as you can tell.
And a whiteboard.
Right.
There's a lot of talking.
You're very verbal visual, I see.
We are.
Margie likes whiteboards too, and colored markers.
And we, and so everything begins with a conversation, and then we trade chapters back and forth. And we had one rule, which is no going backwards. Oh, so good. We would hack and slash each other's documents, and we tell other writers this, and we start like
and we didn't. There was no like conversation. Like you want to delete, you delete. There was like colors, you just delete.
Mad at each other during this?
Never once.
Not really, but we did bargain.
Yeah, at the end it would come back.
Margie would call and be like, "Okay, if I could keep that line in the beginning of chapter 12, you can keep that line that I really hate in chapter 9."
But that's a conversation you could only have after the draft.
Yeah.
So you had to save.
So you had to like save what you were bargaining for later.
Because you had to keep moving forward. And it was so interesting because it taught us not to be precious with our writing. Something had to, it was like erosion. Something had to withstand my waves and her waves.
Kill your baby.
Yeah, kill your babies. We killed each other's babies.
And there were certain plot lines or scenes that were fantastic. I mean, amazing. And some of them we saved as deleted scenes and Little Browns put out. But, you know, they didn't belong in the book. Like, they were great writing, and we wanted to keep them in the book. And we wanted to find a way to fit them in the book. But the truth was, they didn't move the story forward. We got the contract. We kind of plotted book 1, and we knew, like, this is where we need to end up. Yeah. And then we didn't know how many books we were going to write. They contracted us for 2. Okay. We knew it was kind of big and would probably be bigger than that. And some people were saying it would be 5 or 3 or 4, and we just didn't know. Once we got to 2, we knew we could do 2
We always knew how the story would end.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what's represented in the 4 books. We do get asked all the time.
4. Oh, there's 4.
Yeah,
3.
There's 4. And we also, I believe, like as a writing teacher, which, and Margie agrees as a reader, which I've always told my students, is I don't like series where the sequels are like sausage links, like bridges to the next book and nothing happens. Like, I really believe in every book has to have its own complete story arc, and then there's the larger arc, and she feels the same way, having written for a long time and also as a reader. You know, I don't like it. I don't mind a cliffhanger as long as there's still like a completion to that circle. I don't like it where literally it just ends and it's like, okay, well, now wait 1 year to find out what happens next, and you didn't get a whole story.
We wanted to have our own voice. We wanted to stake our own claim, and we wanted to tell our own story.
We wanted to do something different in general.
And it didn't come to you in a dream.
No, it didn't.
But we also didn't want to do, not just Twilight, I mean, any of those books, we didn't want to do what was already out there. What we really wanted to do was take on something totally different, and then from books like Twilight, you know, the thing that we really took away was, you know, we wanted a really strong girl.
But you have to understand, we wrote the book not to be published.
Right.
We wrote it on a dare from my oldest daughter.
For 7 kids.
Didn't believe we could do it. So it had an audience of 7.
Right.
And the audience of 7 had already read Twilight. So we couldn't do what they did. Right. We were writing within the rules that they gave us. Boy telling the story, powerful girl,
no
girl
werewolves,
with magic,
no vampires.
I see.
Not generic. So
we had rules.
It was
so you had the Bible to follow.
Yeah, it was like telling a bedtime story.
So they were like, you come up with the supernaturals, you come up with everything else, but you cannot do these 4 things.
Yeah, and if your kid likes Spider-Man and you're telling him a bedtime story, you're going to tell it about Spider-Man. You know, you're going to work Spider-Man in. So we knew to write a story for them. It was magical.
Strong girl,
not a vampire. I mean, so that was what framed it more than anything, because it wasn't a book for the stories.
Right, we were never intending to publish the book.
It started to go virally around some schools in LA. Friends of...
So you did put it on the web?
Well, no.
They were sending it to each other. The kids.
They were sending it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So then we were going to make a website. So the
and
rest
how long
of the
were
kids
these things that they were sending?
They were sending chapters. We would
I
send
see.
them 2 or 3 chapters at a time, like chunks. So we were writing it almost like serialized fiction. Every couple of days or every day, they would get a new chapter or 2.
You and Charles Dickens.
Yeah, and they would say their questions about what happened next framed what happened next. Characters, Thomas Mann's character and Emmy Rossum's character were very small.
Initially.
And only showing up once. And then they kept saying, well, what's going on with Ridley? Where's Ridley? She's so bad. Where's Ridley? What's going
Ridley.
on? Yeah, no, that's one of
So
their
then we were
favorite
like,
things.
I guess she's going to be doing something
Don't worry, she'll be right back.
You had your built-in focus
Yeah,
group.
we did.
Yeah, and then when we were done, we were going to put it up on a website for free because we wanted other kids to be able to read it, and we gave it to her oldest friend, who is actually a published author, pseudonymous Boss. She's a middle grade author who writes a secret series. And he read it and loved it, and we told him about our, grand idea to put it up on a website, and he said we were idiots, and then not to do that, and he sent it to his agent in New York without telling us, and the next thing you know, we were, it was going to get set out, and it went to auction, and
what did it sell for? Like 1.2 million? Or
No,
something?
we didn't know anything, and so
oh my god!
So
well, you will appreciate this because no one, when they're not Southern, no one appreciates this. So you will understand what happened here.
We were afraid to ask our agent anything because we weren't really even sure she was our agent.
And we didn't want her to know how stupid we were about publishing.
We knew. So she goes, "It's at auction." We're like, "Okay," and Cammy's like,
Margie calls me and she's like, "That's good, right?"
She's like, "That's terrible. That's how they sell the pigs. Nobody wanted
at the end of the fair."
Oh my god!
It shows you what you knew.
I was like, "It's going to be like, can you get $1? We're going to get like $25 for this book."
But the point is, if you could have said to us, it's going to be in 48 countries, you're going to go to, Malaysia to visit your fans, your readers will write to you and, impassioned letters
It's
every
going to
day.
be nominated for the Moritz debut award with the American Librarian Association with a sticker.
Yeah. Right now,
as a teacher, I would have been like, ha ha.
Right now, all 4 of our books are on the top of the bestseller list.
I live in the exact same condo. The only thing I have bought is a Dodge Challenger because I told my husband that he sold my cool car and I was tired of driving the mommy van, and I bought a rescue dog that cost $148.
I put in a garden.
Although when we go to school visits, all the kids go, "Do you guys have a jet?" And I was like, "Well, like the ones they sell at the airport in the the gift shop."
4 inches.
And they're like, "You should get a jet." And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, like, you probably can.
I got 2
buy my
Ford
jet.
Fiestas.
But our life has changed, even though we aren't like super wealthy. Like, I mean, I get kids. I have kids writing. Kids write to us all the time. We get boys writing to us from Afghanistan, saying that like, they're lonely and feel terrible and, feel like they're all alone in the world, and the book's made a difference to them.
I had conversations with women in burqas who read the book in Kuala Lumpur who were going off to arranged marriages in countries they wouldn't tell me, talking about free will. There's a lot about choosing your own destiny.
Exactly.
Richard found it and loved it, and we believed in him, and so then he went out and pitched it everywhere.
He's a kindred spirit.
And it auctioned again.
He took the first day we met him, he had a book that he pulled out with maybe 300 pages of the tiniest writing I've ever seen, of questions that were so hard I almost started to sob.
It was like being on Jeopardy, but you didn't prepare.
It was like a final exam. It's that nightmare where you didn't prepare for the final exam and now you're taking it in a language you never studied. And we were like, my God, he gets, this is all real to us.
So we always had Richard and Irwin from the beginning. Irwin Stoff, the first producer. And then they went to auction and they were just basically like, who do you want? And I was like, The Dark Knight. Like, I mean, I read comic books. I was like, we want The Dark Knight and Richard, and we're good to go.
We've been impressed with everyone who got involved with the project. We believe Alden and Alice are headed to stardom. We loved all of those amazing Academy Award actors came because of him.
Yeah.
I mean, so we've been really grateful for their role in the process.
He took a giant book and managed to translate it into something that was entertaining in 2 hours, which I think is impressive because we're not good at economizing words.
Thank you.